Hey guys, what's going on? My name is Adam Ever Miller with AETutsPlus.com. In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make your own durable light dimmers. First thing we're going to do is head over to our local home improvement store and pick up the supplies we need. From there, I'll take you step by step in how to create an awesome tool that'll give you full control of your light kit. Let's jump in. We need to pick up one 600-watt dimmer. Make sure that it is a single pole style rather than allowing for multiple dimmers in the same room. This single pole will just control the electricity coming in one cord and then out the other, so look for that single pole. One exterior outlet box. Let's pick up some wire nuts, which we're going to use to splice the wires together. Let's also grab a male and female plug. We're going to grab 2 pieces of SGOW cable, and that's 16 gauge wire, 16-3, there's 3 wires involved. Typically I would say 14 gauge, but since Home Depot didn't have that, we went with a 16 gauge, and it should do the job just fine. You'll probably have to have someone help cut it for you. We'll need 2 watertight connectors that we can put into our box here. Here we'll get a blank box cover. Now you may need some electrical tape, but it's hardly worth mentioning. As far as tools, we'll get to that later, but we'll need a razor blade, we'll need a drill. But as we're checking out here, we see that we came up just to $28.06, just shy of $30. So now let's head back to the studio and start putting everything together. Alright, so first thing we're going to want to do is put our plugs on the wire. So let's grab our wire, and we're going to want to take our razor knife or our razor blade and cut about an inch down just to get the insulation off. This will free up the wires and allow us to connect them to the plug. You may notice 3 extra little cords or wires in there. Basically, these are just used to help the cord keep its form. They should be white. You can just go ahead and cut those off. They're not really necessary, especially as we're working with the exposed wire here. Okay, so now that we've stripped our wire, we're going to want to attach one of the plugs. So I'll just grab the female plug, and by grabbing a screwdriver, we can unscrew it, open it up, and then we're going to push our wire through. Alright, so now let's go ahead and strip each wire. Of course, you'll need some wire strippers to do this. If you do only have a razor blade, I guess you could pull it off, but probably a good idea to get some wire strippers. Notice as I'm taking the lining off, I'm twisting the cable. I don't want to have this be frayed at the end, as a bunch of frizzy wires. I want to keep this as one solid cable. Alright, now this is important because each plug is going to have a green screw, which is your grounding screw. It's going to have a gold screw, and this is where the power will come in, and then it's going to have a silver screw, and this is where the power is returned. Alright, let's take the green wire, and we're going to attach that to the green screw, our ground, and let's go ahead and just tighten that up. And then we're going to take the white wire, and that's going to attach to our silver screw. And then finally the black wire is going to go onto the golden screw. Now depending on how the plug is made, the installation of the actual cords might be a little bit different, but it's always going to be green on green, white on silver, and black on gold. Alright, so now that we have all of our cords attached, let's go ahead and put the plug back together and tighten it up. And then, of course, we're going to want to tighten these strain reliefs just so that, if someone kicks it or as you pick up the cord, it's not putting stress on the actual cables, but just on that outer lining. All right, and there we have it. Our female plug is all ready to go. Now, just to keep this tutorial a little bit shorter, I'm going to skip out the redundant steps. We're pretty much just going to do the exact same thing for the male side, so just go ahead and pause it and do the same thing for the male plug, and then we'll pick right back up. Alright, so now with both of our plugs complete, we're going to want to install our waterproof connectors into our single gang exterior box. At this point you might need some pliers just to kind of help you tighten it down. Be sure that you're only tightening the inside because this connector has 2 parts. The second part is going to allow you to tighten it over the actual cable. All right, so now we can go ahead and install one on the other side. Okay, and the box should have come with a plug included, so let's just go ahead and put the plug in the back and seal that off. All right, so now we have our two watertight connectors, 1, 2, and the plug. All right, so now we're going to run our cables through our box, and this is the part where you want to be generous with yourself. Give yourself enough cable to actually work with here. I'd say at least 6 inches. All right, and now using our razor knife, let's go ahead and strip off the outside coating. And this may seem like an exorbitant amount, but it makes it a little easier to work with. And then again, we can get rid of these individual, these 3 white cords that are in the inside because they're nothing, they're just there as filler. By getting these out of the way, it just kind of declutters what you're working on and makes it a little bit simpler. All right, so with our wire through, let's go ahead and tighten up the other part of the connector. And this is just gonna lock the wire in place just so it doesn't slide out on us. Now this is where if your wire is not quite large enough to fill the gap, you might want to wrap it with some electrical tape. This will just kind of thicken the wire and give it a wider surface area so that you can clamp down with the connectors. All right, so now we have one plug with the wires coming out of the box, and now we can move on to the other one. Now again, since this is a little bit repetitive, I'm just going to kind of skip over this part. It's literally the exact same step as what we just did. All right, so now with both plugs in place, we will need to strip the wires again. So let's do the green, white, and black for both sides. Again, remember as you're stripping it, maybe give it a little bit of a twist just to keep things organized and to keep things clean. Now, typically when you're wiring a house, you want to first wire your ground, then your neutral, and then your hot wire. Now, in this case, obviously, we're not plugged into anything. There's no risk that, power is going to go on for any reason. So it's not as important, but that is just something worth mentioning here. All right, now, just so we're clear, the power is going to come in here through this black wire and then go into the dimmer, where we're going to have control of it, and then onto the female plug. And then it's going to return on the white wire to complete it so that it's a full running current. And now the ground, the green wire, you may ask what's that for? It pretty much just offers another option in case something were to happen to the white wire. It allows for the power to exit somewhere. All right, so since our white wire isn't going to need to patch into the dimmer at all, we can just put them together, and then we're going to attach a wire nut just to splice these 2 wires. And we'll go ahead and twist it on real tight. Now technically people might say you need to wrap this with electrical tape. You might see that in other tutorials. Technically, if you do it correctly, you shouldn't need to use electrical tape. You certainly can as an extra safety precaution, but if you use the wire nuts correctly, you should be just fine. All right, so just so I can clean up what I'm working with here, I'm going to take my 2 black wires and just using some electrical tape, I'm going to tape them here to the outside just so that they're not in my way as I'm working here with the ground. Okay, so now as we're stripping our ground, we're going to want to strip them extra long, and then we'll take the ground from the dimmer along with the 2 grounds from both sides of the cable, and we're going to merge them all together, so we'll just twist them all together like this. Now with this one large ground wire, essentially, we're going to wrap it around the grounding screw, and then screw that into the base of the box itself. Now, as you're tightening a screw down, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, you're going to want to make sure that you wrap the cable in the direction that you're going to be turning. If you were to wrap it around counterclockwise, as you go to screw it in, it's going to want to unravel the cable. The cable is going to want to come off it. Whereas if you wrap it around clockwise, as you tighten, it's going to pull the cable in tighter. If you haven't done it before, it's just a good practice to to implement. All right, and for our last connection here, we're going to do black wire to black wire, the one coming from the cable to the dimmer, and then the other black wire from the other cable going into the other black wire from the dimmer. It doesn't really matter which one, either way it's still controlling the power, so let's go ahead and put those together. Okay, so now with everything tightened up, we see blacks going in up to the dimmer, and then onto the plug, and then back, and the white is essentially just one long wire. It's just one continuous flow of power. Now here's something else that's kind of interesting. A lot of times you might get a screw that is too long, or just there's way more thread than you need. And so what's cool is a lot of times wire strippers will have in it the feature that you can actually screw a screw into them and then kind of snap it off and just kind of cut off anything that's extra, just because you don't need to continue to screw it in further and further. Okay, now grabbing our faceplate, we're going to want to make sure that we get the very, very center of the faceplate. Typically, if you have a ruler, that would work best. Otherwise, even just a flat edge with a pen or a pencil. We want to make sure that we get the very pinpoint center as we go to drill our hole. Now, as an extra little tip, if you have an extra screw or a nail around, it might not be a bad idea to take it and to kind of bang a little indentation into the faceplate. This will keep the drill bit from spinning out. It'll keep it in place right there in the center. Now in this case, I'm using a 5/16 drill bit, and that should be enough of a hole to be able to stick the dimmer through without it being a gaping open hole that dirt and dust and junk can get in there. Okay, so we can take the knob off the dimmer, and now comes the fun part of trying to balance everything up and line it up just right so we can screw the plate on tight. We can go ahead and reattach the knob. And there we have it. It is a complete dimmer. Let's go ahead and plug it into our power supply and then onto our light kit and see how it works. One thing that I like to do is actually mark on the faceplate the percentage of power that's going through to the lights. So we'll start here at 0 and then go all the way to 100, and then from there you can just kind of guesstimate, but I will typically break it into 25%, 50%, and then 75%. That just allows me, as we're talking back and forth trying to light a scene, it allows me to say to an intern or to a production assistant, okay, knock it down to 50. Okay, and then down to 25. Okay, back up to 50. It gives them a little bit of a visual so they're not just blindly twisting a knob, to hopefully land on the right light amount. And there you have it, a completed durable light dimmer for less than $30. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Again, my name is Adam Evermiller with AETutsPlus.com, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.